U.S. and Russia is greater now than at any time since the end of the Cold War, and just about the only people who seemed alarmed by that are the American Missiliers and, strangely enough, their Russian counterparts. Tonight you will meet them both as they continue to rehearse launching enough destructive power to bring on Armageddon.
Mic test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
It's 1 a.m. Pitch black with a dense fog settling in on this remote California hilltop. Hard to figure out what could possibly draw anyone to these bleachers on such a gloomy night.
Item 89, MCO, Armed Destruct System.
But this is a gathering of nuclear soldiers, Missiliers, here at Vandenberg Air Force Base to take part in a full-blown test of American military might.
Status alert switch to green.
A missile is about to be launched, and these Missiliers from bases all around the country are here to take part in the event they call the Glory Trip.
The final execute launch command has been initiated and terminal countdown has begun.
It's a trip that begins a mile away, and they all know that the real glory this night belongs to two of their colleagues who are, at that moment, operating 70 feet underground in a fortified bunker.
TVI.
TVI.
Charlie 02.
This is a nuclear missile launch facility. And those two Missiliers, Lieutenant Rich Namath, age 25, and Lieutenant Michelle Del Toro, 23, have won the honor of launching an intercontinental ballistic missile.
Unlock code, Romeo Echo.
It's a procedure that nuclear launch officers have been rehearsing in underground silos for decades, long before these two were even born.
Okay, here we
What's
go.
different about tonight, the reason it's called a glory trip for them, is because this time it's no drill.
3, 2, 1, mark.
Get it up, there it goes!
That is a Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile in its first seconds of flight. 60 feet tall, 200 tons. It's the mainstay of America's nuclear arsenal. It's built to carry 3 thermonuclear warheads that can hit and destroy any 3 cities in the world in just half an hour. Exactly 28 minutes and 39 seconds after launch, this is how another glory trip ended. 3 warheads bursting into the night sky over the Kwajalein Islands in the South Pacific. And all 3, we are told, striking precisely on target. Why are we, the United States of America, still doing this, still at the nanosecond ready with nuclear weapons? And why are the Russians?
Good question. Tough answer.
No one has greater credentials to answer that question than 4-star General Eugene Habiger. From the time he began his career 40 years ago as a B-52 pilot waiting for the call to bomb Moscow, until a year and a half ago when he was honored at this retirement ceremony for his 3-year tour as Commander-in-Chief of all U.S. nuclear forces, Habiger has been on the front lines of America's nuclear forces, unapologetic defender of America's nuclear policies.
Cold War was a unique war, and when the war ended, the loser really didn't lose. We still had this massive military might on both sides staring each other in the face.
Do the Russians still have a nuclear capability that could wipe us off the planet?
Absolutely.
No doubt.
No doubt.
Could we do that to them?
Yeah, no doubt.
See, I don't think most people know that.
Well, that's a dilemma.
It didn't seem like a dilemma back in the hopeful days after the Cold War ended, when America and Russia agreed to cut their giant arsenals of 12,000 nuclear weapons, each in half. But to Habiger's dismay, when he assumed command, relations with Russia began to disintegrate, and no further reductions were authorized. General, when you took command in 1996, how many nuclear warheads did we have deployed? How many nuclear warheads did you have under your command?
A little over 6,000, Dan.
And how many did the Russians have?
About the same.
And how many do we have now?
About the same. And the fact that we have not been able to get down to lower and lower levels of nuclear weapons is troubling to me. And it should be troubling to you.
And you quickly understand his concerns when you walk into the world of the Missiliers. For the past 2 years, reporter George Kreil has had unprecedented access to America's nuclear empire, an empire off limits and virtually unknown to most Americans.
He said most Americans have forgotten that you're out there. They don't really know that there are missiles here on alert. They might be, they're ready to go just like they were during the Cold War. That's true, isn't it?
That is, in fact, we're still under that the same criteria. We do business as usual, just like you said, and nothing has changed from a Missiliers standpoint.
Colonel Stacker, sorry to interrupt. The
Yes.
launch facility is 12 o'clock, approximately 3.5 miles.
That facility is hidden in the wheat fields of Wyoming. And when you go down under and find yourself face to face with the Peacekeeper, the biggest and deadliest of America's ICBMs, it seems more like an exhibit in a Cold War museum than a weapon of mass destruction poised on hair-trigger alert. But when you go behind these doors and meet the launch officers responsible for those missiles, they force you to confront the reality of what a peacekeeper can do.
Well, I mean, what we do, we could possibly end civilization as we know it, and that's not something that we all want to do. And being rational professionals, we do everything in our power to prevent that.
You understand what he is talking about when you consider the power of the weapon he and his fellow Missiliers are prepared to launch. Just one thermonuclear warhead, the kind America uses to arm its ICBMs, carries more destructive power than 20 of the atomic bombs that destroyed Hiroshima.
It's fairly quiet on alert, so you have a lot of time for reflection. And so we'll sit there and we might talk about sports, we might talk about a movie we saw, but there's just something inside of us that tells us that we need to look at why we're here.
First stage ignition.
You begin to understand their burden when you discover that the missile they are set to launch within minutes carries not one, but 10 warheads. And it's not just one peacekeeper they control from these facilities, but 10. The bottom line equation for them is 10 missiles, 100 cities. The possibility that one man could trigger the end of civilization as we know it. Do you ever find yourself saying, this is crazy?
Well, I not that it's crazy. It's just that we need to move on and get down to lower levels in such a way that we feel comfortable with and doesn't compromise our national security, our way of life. Again, a bizarre twist of history, Dan, where we won the war, but we're still paying a price for that war today.
That price tag comes out to $25 billion a year, simply to maintain America's nuclear war-making system. Fleets of nuclear submarines, networks of satellites and radar tracking stations, thousands of ICBMs, all manned around the clock and on combat alert.
Spacelift Commander, clear to launch.
You know, all of these rituals, all of these commands, all of this equipment is still in place as it was at the end of the Cold War?
Yes. Unfortunately, yes.
If there's one event that underscores how little things have changed, it's this celebration that brings together rival teams of Missiliers, each with its own mascots from bases across the country. It's sobering to realize that what's being recognized here with the awards that are given out are the skills that go into launching a nuclear war.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, is this a great evening or what?
For them, this night is a kind of Top Gun Academy Awards ceremony to recognize the best of the best.
The best missile operations crew in the Air Force is Crew S-600.
And if it looks like they were celebrating a victory, it's because everyone here feels they contributed to the Cold War victory. But they all know their old mission hasn't changed, that America's nuclear forces are still on alert, because Russia is still on alert with equal force.
The only thing that remains out there that can destroy the United States as we know it today, are those nuclear weapons in Russia.
Halfway around the world, 30 minutes as a missile flies, when you gain access to Russia's closed and secret nuclear world, as our reporter George Kreil did, you quickly discover what General Habiger is talking about. Russia may be bankrupt, but this is a brand new intercontinental ballistic missile, the Topol-M, and it's moving here through the woods of Russia on full combat alert, ready to stop, tilt its rockets to the sky, and launch within minutes of receiving an order.
Oh, it is real, and it's formidable.
Can they hit anything with this missile, this huge thing launched off the back of this truck?
Yes, very accurately.
If they chose to, they could hit one of our cities with these things?
Once they put the target coordinates in there, yes, sir, they could.
That's New York, Los Angeles, Boston, Chicago, in 30 minutes.
Быстрее.
Sooner than that.
And so these frightening rituals play on with eerie similarity in both countries. Two Russian Missiliers here practicing the rapid launch of 10 ICBMs with 100 warheads, just like their American counterparts, even down to the final simultaneous turn of the launch keys. If the president, God forbid, had to give the order, we must fire. Are we talking about seconds, minutes, or hours before such a missile could actually and would actually be fired?
You're talking about minutes.
On both sides, in your opinion?
Yes.
The Russians could get theirs launched within minutes?
Yes, sir.
But this is something most people assumed that we didn't have to worry about anymore.
No Russian missiles are pointed at the children of Minnesota and the United States for the first time since the dawn of the nuclear age. There are no Russian missiles pointing at these children here.
When the president told the American people over and over again in the last presidential campaign that the nuclear nightmare was over, it's because he had just signed an agreement with Russia's President Boris Yeltsin to stop targeting missiles at each other.
We won the Cold War.
What he didn't say is that there was no way to verify that agreement and that many of the missiles can go right back on their Cold War targets within a minute. The entire treaty was based solely on trust. And in the second year of General Habiger's command, that trust was shattered. In February 1998, an enraged Boris Yeltsin publicly warned the United States that it was risking World War III if it followed through with its threat to bomb Russia's old ally, Saddam Hussein. For General Habiger, this was a moment when something dramatic had to be done quickly to try to reduce the levels of nuclear weapons on both sides. And that's when he reached out to the one ally he thought might make a difference. It was none other than his former enemy, Russia's nuclear commander, General Vladimir Yakovlev, who was equally unhappy about having to operate such a huge arsenal.
Yes, I think it's way too much. It's enough to destroy the Earth's civilization a number of times.
Put the egg in your mouth.
When we come back, the strange high-stakes diplomacy of the two most powerful nuclear commanders in the world. Now, you know, there are a lot of people in the audience who say, we had a four-star general who trusts the Russians. What kind of deal is that?